What do you think? Is this fair and reasonable?
Well, you don't need a medical test, you just need an eyeball test. It's there right in front of us. You know, there's an individual who's, what, 270, maybe 300 pounds, competing against much smaller individuals. There's no doubt that testosterone makes you stronger, more aggressive. You go through a male puberty, you have bigger joints, you have bigger bones. All these factors. I am a massive sports fan. Obviously, I want good things for transgender people, but I just think it's the line that you cannot cross. You have to be respectful. First and foremost, I transitioned to be a woman. I respect women. That's what I am now, and I just think it is grossly unfair. You are stealing people's dreams.
Wow.
OK, well, that's very strong words, and that's how a lot of people feel about this. Joanna, this is a tweet I just got from Chris Tomlinson, three-times Olympic long jumper, world, indoor and European medalist, and a dad. And he just said the physical advantages a man has over a woman in sport are mammoth. I believe men converting to women, then competing in the women's category, could wreck women's sport. I do hope Piers Morgan speaks up for women's rights. This is my point. Nothing I'm about to say to you is transphobic. I completely support transgender rights and I have great respect for people who want to transition. My issue is where transgender rights appear to be deemed more important to women's rights, even when they're clearly damaging women's rights. And I'll give you one example. If Usain Bolt decided tomorrow to transition to be a woman and compete in the Olympics in the women's 100-metre final, would that be fair?
Not tomorrow. But after a year of hormone therapy, he'd be running 10, 12% slower, and he would only be approximately as fast as the fastest women's sprinters.
He could run 50% slower, couldn't he, and still win?
50%? No, there's only a second difference between the fastest men and the fastest women. It's 10%. He would lose that. My data shows it, and he would only be as fast as the fastest.
With the greatest respect, you know, I've been on hormones now for, what, 3 years? And after a year, I still had some residue strength and there was still that difference.
And also, we have these sprinters in Connecticut, for example. There are two young sprinters who were competing as male sprinters, now competing as female sprinters, smashing all records in Connecticut for women's sprinting, clearly have had no demonstrable difference in their speeds and are destroying women's rights to the extent that Connecticut's now being sued, the authorities there, by other women who feel the competition now is grotesquely unfair and that they themselves have had their own dreams and their own battle for fairness, equality and success destroyed.
Connecticut doesn't require hormone therapy, and the trans girls were winning before they started on hormone therapy. Their lawyer says they're now on hormone therapy. They're no longer winning.
Is it purely about hormones? Because, of course, the reason that men's sport and women's sport are separate in a number of cases is because of the development of muscle, strength, bigger size, bulk, weight, not testosterone at a certain point.
It's the body mechanics.
It's the development of that body over years.
Even after hormone therapy, trans women will maintain some advantages. As you say, they're bigger, stronger. That is true. Trans women have disadvantages too. Their larger frames are now being powered by reduced muscle mass, reduced aerobic capacity. It's a big car with a small engine competing against a small car with a small engine. And all you see is the big car.
Like boxing and weightlifting, clearly, you know, it's a foregone conclusion.
Having a bigger
it's basically
frame
not worth
is going to be
anymore.
an advantage.
And I think the real danger...
Would you allow, you know, somebody like Anthony Joshua to box in women's boxing in a year's time if he had the treatment?
There's a weight category issue. I'm not sure about the weight categories. He'd be a lot bigger than any woman, but if he was in a woman's size weight category, yes, I would.
You would let Floyd Mayweather,
crazy.
who is pound for pound the most successful boxer in male history, you would let him in a year's time compete at the same weight against women?
Yeah, if there's a weight category...
This is nonsense. I'm sorry.
It's absolute
How
garbage.
could you possibly countenance putting Floyd Mayweather, the most dangerous boxer, pound for pound, arguably in the history of boxing, into a ring with women born to female bodies? This is where the argument becomes utterly ridiculous. And it's not transphobic to say so, it's common sense.
There's a fighter called Fallon Fox in the mixed martial arts world who is a big individual, gone into a fight, round one, broke somebody's skull.
So that was in 2014. Can you have something more recent? Trans women are not taking over women's
Still
sports.
relevant.
Trans women are not causing massive injuries. Trans women in rugby, for instance, haven't created one injury in the last 5 years.
There's a trans woman in cricket in Kent who averaged something like 17 playing men's cricket and now averages 135
on the verge of
playing
selection
women's
for
cricket
international
and was
cricket.
deemed Women Cricketer of the Year in Kent. That is ridiculous. And nothing against that woman. I totally respect the fact she's transitioned and wants to be a woman. Fine. But you were competing against male cricketers at a certain level, and now your level, despite the treatment, has actually 10 times improved. How can that be fair?
She hasn't said whether she's on treatment or not. I would presume that she's not because she hasn't said so. Again, if we watched her go under treatment, we would see a massive change in her
You
performance.
know, in your heart, and I respect the battle that you're waging to support transgender rights. And, you know, I get this is a real hot potato, very complicated. But honestly, when our viewers hear you say that Floyd Mayweather should be allowed to box against women of the same weight in a year's time if he just has a bit of testosterone treatment, and what I don't like about it is it's not just ridiculous and highly dangerous for women to even suggest that, but it makes a mockery to me of people like India who have actually gone through transitioning.
And it
makes transgenderism become a subject of open mockery.
Joanna,
And it
you've been
also
through
creates a
transition as well.
backlash,
Yes,
though,
But
because
do you not
people
see that?
get
You must hear that from
peeved
other
off
transgender people like
at
India.
things like this happening. I think women justifiably do feel things like toilets. I went to the Old Vic recently, and it's absolutely ludicrous. The only gender as such that has a dedicated bathroom now is gender neutral. Men and women have had to give up their rights. But the real issue here is that this is going to be a gradual creep. The original rules for transgender athletes came in just prior to the 2004 Olympics. Then it used to be you had to have a full medical transition, be on estrogen for 2 full years. That then changed prior to the 2016 Olympics, so you just had to lower your testosterone. We're now into a world where self-ID is coming up, and in future Olympics, if this is allowed now, you're going to have individuals
We have to leave it there.
changing in any way whatsoever.
Final
I
words.
agree. We shouldn't allow trans women to go just under self-ID. Hormones make a big difference. I know that better than anyone.